All right. Call the regular Open Spaces Commission meeting to order for May 23rd, 2022. Robert, can we have a roll call?
You bet. We'll start with you, Commissioner Wilson.
I'm here.
All right, Commissioner Bessler.
Present and accounted for in person.
In person.
Commissioner Burton, see you online.
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Commissioner Loseth
I'm here.
and Commissioner Norton.
Present.
That's everyone.
All right. We move down to number 3, the land acknowledgement statement. The Flagstaff Open Spaces Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of the area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to the indigenous peoples, and we honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home. And we move on to approval of the April 25th, 2022 meeting minutes. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to at least browse it a little bit. And is there any discussion or any corrections to the minutes as they are written? Hearing none. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes for April 25th?
Sure. Andy, I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Is that Commissioner Bessler?
Yep.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion. This is Commissioner Loseth.
All right. And all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as written. We move on to number 5, which is public participation. At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject that is not scheduled before the commission on this day. The Arizona Open Meeting Law prohibits the commission from discussing or acting on an item which is not listed on the prepared agenda. Commission members may, however, respond to criticism made by those addressing the commission, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. To address the commission on an item that is on the agenda, please wait for the chair to call for public comment at the time that the item is heard. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak on a subject that's not on the agenda for tonight? And I see Nat, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to just say something that you already know, and that is that Robert Wallace's dedication to this whole subject, both with the city and outside on his own time, is really worth noting, and I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Here.
Appreciate that. And is there anyone else that would like to speak on something that's not on the agenda?
Stacy Bogart has an announcement as well.
Hi, I'm the Deputy City Clerk, Stacy Bogart. I just wanted to welcome our new council liaison.
Hello.
Good, thanks, Stacy.
Oh, they're not on.
She is.
Okay.
And Kara, would you like to say anything? You're more than welcome to chime in if you'd like.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to have been able to make it and look forward to learning more of you guys' work and just, you know, partnering as best as I can. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're pleased to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I'll make just one quick announcement as well. As you have noticed, we have Commissioner Mary Norton as part of the Open Spaces Commission now, who is the liaison from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So welcome to her as well.
Thank you. I'm happy to join you all.
Absolutely. Welcome. Okay. Nice to have another body. I guess then we move on down to the business items. Which the first one is the open space budget update. Robert, it's a informational and discussion item.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Wilson. So I've actually just been meaning to give you all an update about our progress for our open space budget for the last couple of meetings. We just haven't had a chance. So I just thought I would take that opportunity to do that now. We did put in a request with the city's budget team for some recommendations for our program. And those included an open space coordinator position. As you know, the only full-time permanent position that we have is my position, the open space specialist. And so this position would help support the open space program moving forward. We put in a request to reclassify my position, the open space specialist position, to an open space supervisor status. And then we put in a $15,000 request for ongoing management and maintenance for our open space properties. These recommendations were the budget team did make to City Council, and City Council has reviewed those, and they are still on the list. So the open space coordinator is on the list for being approved, hopefully, by City Council for $88,337. And then the reclassification is on the list for $9,220. We also, the budget team tentatively approved the ongoing management and maintenance as $7,500 ongoing, and then $7,500 as a one-time. So that's really great news, and we're looking forward to that going to City Council for their final budget approval before the end of the fiscal year. And then we also have the Open Space Educator Heritage Grant from the state of Arizona that City Council approved a while ago, and that is going to bring $50,000 worth of grant funds to our program to support an education and volunteer management position. So we will be working with our HR office to move that forward as well. And so this doesn't really change a ton for our organization, but you likely saw the notes that I sent you earlier. I might actually share that with you just here. So you can see on the screen here what our current organization is. Here's the open space specialist underneath the direction of the pros division. That's Rebecca Sayers. And then the change that you'll see here is that we hope just to add the open space coordinator position directly under the open space supervisor and still remain under the direction of the pros division director.
So, Robert,
Yeah.
can I get you to just put some names with all those boxes at the top? Just so I have that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So
The supervisor is you, right?
Yep, that's me. The pros division director, that's Rebecca Sayers. She's with us tonight here as well. And the admin specialist, commission, website, and grant specialist is, actually, can you speak to that, Rebecca?
Well, we have,
That's a
yeah,
proposed,
we
right?
have two admin specialists for the division. And one is Beck, who you all have met, is taking your minutes. And the other one is Kathy Getchow, who was taking your minutes previously before Beck joined us. So eventually we may separate the two by these duties that are on this organizational chart. Those were some ideas that we have, but right now they're both doing all of it as they can.
Thanks, Rebecca.
But
Yeah, so this, you see that position underneath the division director was also a recommendation that PROS made to the budget team for a deputy director type position. And so that will also be going to city council along with those other recommendations.
Okay.
And so we are also working on planning our fiscal year 2023 expenditures. And I do hope to bring an update to the Open Spaces Commission on a draft for that at one of our future meetings at the first part of this. And
So, sorry, I might have missed something. As the PROS deputy director circled on the list.
that's just a tentative position upon approval of city council.
Got it.
But it was a recommendation made by the budget team on behalf of them.
the circles, just to clarify, were just to signify as you go from the previous slide, or not
Sure.
if you want to show that. Rent structure. And then the intent was to go to the next slide and show you what's different by using the circles to identify the new positions or the changing positions that we are as part of the budget.
Great, so I'll stop there, and if there are any questions from commissioners, go ahead.
Anybody have any questions for Robert or Rebecca?
So there's, under the proposed deputy director position, there's the recreation manager, parks manager, events marketing supervisor, but open space supervisors not reporting to deputy director. So why is that?
That's a lot so that I can work directly with Robert. I feel like we've established a pretty good working relationship, but I still have a lot to learn about open space and want to be able to provide that high level of support with the deputy director. And there's some conversation, and that position title will likely change. But the intent is the same, that they would on open space as well as developing higher level partnerships, funding opportunities. So it might change in the future, but for now in conversations with both, you all probably know Amy Hagan, she's our parks manager. We all worked on these ideas together, and we felt that this would help open space be most accessible, at least in the near term. Continue to be successful.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great that this proposal will allow us to continue working directly with Rebecca and capitalizing on her experience with the city. So. If there are no other questions, I am done with that particular item.
All right. If there are no other questions, then I guess we'll move on to item B, which is the Greater Observatory Mesa Trail Planning Update. This is an item for all of us. Also an informational and discussion item. Robert, do you want to start us?
Be happy to, yeah. So I did send you a link for the Observatory Mesa Trail Plan that has the edits that we discussed at our last meeting that are now included in the plan. And I'd be happy to flip through that if you guys want to take a look at that. I don't know, or if you want, you can take a look on your own as well. It's pretty much the exact plan that we've been going through. Mainly, the update that I wanted to provide you all was what the next step looks like. And so This plan, the preliminary review of those alignments was reviewed by the Coconino National Forest prior to your approval. And it also was reviewed by Lowell Observatory. We also got some preliminary review from Martin Ince on the on trail connections with the foots. And then we have now started to schedule the public outreach and input phase for this plan. And that will include a kickoff with the City Council's work session on June 14th. And that essentially will start our first stage of public outreach, which will begin on June 14th through July 23rd, which is a 40-day comment period. So during this time, the public will be able to provide comments on the plan through the community forum. And we also will have one public meeting at the City Hall Council Chambers, which is currently scheduled for June 29th at 5 p.m. We will, of course, also reach out to a number of city stakeholders and partners to either provide a presentation for commissions or ask commissions to review the plan and provide comment during that public period. And then that first public comment period will end on the 23rd of June. And then we will take that plan and revise it accordingly to our partner and community input to ensure that we have aligned with our partners and our public direction that we receive. And then we will revise that trail plan concept and use it for the second stage of community and public outreach, which we hope to start. I have a tentative date of August 8th through September 16th. And so that is also a 40-day public comment period like the first one. And so this will very much reflect the first public comment period. It'll also have the open to community forum survey, which will be accepting public feedback through. And then we will have another public meeting as well in association with this public comment period. Tentatively, we have scheduled that for August 31st at 5 p.m. in council chambers again. And then that public comment period will close tentatively on the 16th of September. And we will take that feedback. We will revise the plan again according to public and community input. And then that finalized trail concept will be shared again with our main stakeholders, Lowell Observatory and the Forest Service, for their approval. And upon their approval, we can begin kind of looking at things like the primary alignments for the trail. And once those are tentatively approved, we will begin a final opportunity for public input to review the finalized concept. And, we don't have a hard and set date for that at this point, but tentatively that could be in January of 2020. Once that period, once that 30-day comment period is closed, we'll look at taking it forward to City Council for the final adoption. I can stop there, answer questions, or if the commission wants to look at the plan, I'm happy to pull that up as well.
Commissioners, any comments, questions? You want Robert to pull up the plan or not?
This is this is Commissioner Norton. I since I'm new, I would like just a little brief summary. That would be great.
Okay.
Wondering if we could lean on Mark maybe to talk us through it.
Commissioner Loza?
Would you like me to begin at the beginning?
Commissioner Loza, thanks for jumping in there. You're happy to just give us a quick overview of the plan,
Sure.
and I can the plan however is helpful.
Absolutely. So the background of the trail plan that we have currently really came out of priorities that were developed by the Flagstaff Trail Initiative, 2018 and 19. So we had a community planning effort that identified from a regional perspective a lot of what the trail community was looking for as far as, you know, improved outdoor recreation and access opportunities. And so based off the opportunities that were identified during the Flagstaff Trail Initiative plan, we started putting together a proposal to improve the trail infrastructure and the, you know, enhanced mileage and outdoor recreation experiences that could be provided in Observatory Mesa and the surrounding lands. Surrounding lands would be the open space area, 3 different sections of Forest Service land that are kind of around the checkerboard, but on the Mesa proper, excuse me. And then section 17 that is owned and managed by Lowell Observatory, and the private lands that immediately surround section 17, which on that map is the lower right-hand corner, kind of that pink polygon is the Lowell Observatory properties. So looking at a variety of different elements based on terrain, cultural resources, natural resources. So looking at habitat and sensitive species, looking at watersheds, kind of developed a plan based off of the existing infrastructure and proposed new trails and, you know, what experiences and what mileage and, you know, kind of loop opportunities that could be provided based off of the trails being proposed and the existing infrastructure that we propose to keep, which are some of the roads and some of the single track trails that exist on section 17. We also identified some additional access points, moving toward the goal of 10-minute walkable distance to for all residents to open space property within the city of Flagstaff. So took a look at where we could provide additional access points, additional parking areas, to better access the property for the surrounding neighborhoods and the community and visitors at large, as well as the parking area on the south side of the Mesa on West 66. So, you know, looking at improved access, improved recreational experiences, but also taking a close look at ensuring that we're protecting the resource that we have on Observatory Mesa. So how does the blend of desired human experiences, doing outdoor recreation, work with the natural and cultural resources that we know that exist on the properties? And so trying to find that balance in between the two is where the resulting plan came from. And there's a lot of context, there's a lot of background information as far as cultural resources, natural resources, how AZ State Parks and the land grant that the city has comes into play, how Lowell Observatory their partnership is working for this plan, and a variety of other things. There's a lot of information in the appendixes down at the bottom of the report that provide a lot of context to, you know, the decision making, the thought process that went into drafting the plan that we have. And then, you know, below the page that's currently shown, there's a prioritized implementation strategy that kind of looks at, you know, what do we do first, second, and third, and why? You know, how do we provide, you know, improved access? How do we provide improved trail infrastructure in a conscious and logical way that isn't too disruptive to the way people use the land now and isn't disruptive to the natural and cultural resources that exist in the area, in the greater Observatory Mesa area. So I'll leave it at that, open it up to questions that anybody has. And if anybody's looking for more context, I'm ready.
Thank you, Commissioner Wissett.
Anyone with any questions or comments about this version of the trail plan?
Yeah, this is Andy. I'm trying to remember, did you have numbers in there in terms of budget amounts for, you know, like trail signage and things like that? I don't remember seeing budget numbers.
They thus far have not been included in the plan. They are a part of the overall project from the planning standpoint. Because we haven't landed on the total mileage of single track trails, total mileage of existing road beds that we'd be looking to incorporate into the plan. It's challenging to kind of land on a range for funding. But there will be a document included that will show, priority 1, 2, and 3 and estimated costs for each one.
Just even estimate.
Yeah, so I can add to Commissioner Losa's comment there. Yeah, he has been working actually on helping us put those things together, and that way we have some kind of basis of where we can start when we start looking for funding. We do think that this would be a viable application to Arizona State Parks for the Recreational Trails Program grant, and we do have some money set aside for potential match grant. So the plan would be once it's approved by the community and city council, we would be looking for funding to implement these different priorities. This first one that you see here is the first priority, which would include section 18 and potentially section 17 with Lowell Observatory's permission. And then we have 2 other priorities that we would like to try to fund. You can see the map for priority 2, which includes some work on section 18, 7, 3, and 12. The final priority.
Robert and Commissioner Losa, I just have a quick question. At what point might the cost or funding become part of this plan? Because once this goes out for public, comment, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of interest in what the cost of this is going to be. So I just was curious, at what point might that be included in maybe one of the later versions of the plan after public comment?
I think the document that we've been working on is really more of an internal document at this point to help us kind of have an estimate of what the overall cost of the project could be. And I think maybe we'll keep that document as an internal document. So when we do go out to bid, it's kind of a fair process and folks kind of come up with their own estimate for an overall project. We could provide kind of an overall estimate for the implementation of the plan if you think like the community might be interested in learning about that.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, the intent with the figures, the dollar figures, is to be as accurate as possible. The last thing I think any of us want to do is provide numbers that are too low to Robert. So he's requesting not enough money to get this all done. And so it will be reliant on public commenting and the final iteration of the plan.
Right, because I'm sure that with public comment, there'll be lots of changes. Anyone else?
This is part 2 that we're looking at, and then I'll just show you the final map here as well.
Okay.
We have a member of the public who's very familiar with Observatory Mesa. So Nat, what's your take on the plan, just as a member of the public? I'm kind of curious.
Well, there's some way to go challenges on that section 17, but we've got to start somewhere, and this is a great start. There's been a lot of assessing and talking about it. But as far as section 17 is, that's the will is there, whether the legal is there. I think that's all I can say.
So there, anyone else? You got the final map up?
Yeah.
Not yet.
There's the proposed system.
All right. Any last comments before we move on? All right. Been a lot of hard work going into this, and I think it looks really good, and appreciate all the incorporating the suggestions and comments, from our last meeting. I think it looks good. All right. Well, no comments, then we will move on to item C, open space easements.
Great. So this is a continuation, a follow-up of a previous meeting that we had in February where our real estate manager for the city, Bryce Doty, came and talked to us a little bit about easements that are on open space property. So hopefully you had a chance to refresh yourself with that discussion. Bryce had some information to share with the commission about how many registered easements there are. I think I remember him saying there are 93 easements, which includes approximately 22 on Picture Canyon, 11 on Observatory Mesa, and 9 on the Schultz Creek area, I think. And then there was an approximate number that he gave for McMillan Mesa that included some additional amount in over 50 easements on McMillan. Just to remind the commission, this agenda item started when the commission was curious of whether or not easements had language in them that would require the easement holder to take conservation take actions. Mainly, I think this was kind of revolved around weed mitigation. So, for instance, if an entity held an easement through open space, are they responsible for taking care of the weeds within their corridor that are perhaps caused by like the disturbance of that easement? And if there's not language in an easement of that nature, could the easement potentially be amended or edited to include some kind of conservation type language to support the purpose of open space as far as conservation and preservation? And so, but what Bryce had shared with us was that the holder of those easements essentially has the rights for those easements, and there's no way that we can really go back and edit them unless, of course, that holder of the easement is willing to go back and work with us on that type of document. And so there is some language, some present language in the city dedication on development that makes the grantor at its own expense is responsible for restoring any vegetation, improvements or obstructions or non-permanent structures. And so that is some basic language as far as it applies to the installation, operation, and repair, replacement of like sewers, utility facilities within the easement area. So in a nutshell, the rights have already been given. So a revision would have to be a position of goodwill between the city and the holder of the easement. So in this agenda item, I thought the things that maybe the commission could work through would be to review and review the document that Bryce shared with us and identify like where you would like additional information as far as some of those easements. What should be included in maybe completing that database that real estate has started on behalf of our open space program, and maybe including that into the city's GIS system initially identify high impact restoration needs and the associated easements, and actually examine like maybe how an easement could be altered, working with our partners to include some kind of language perhaps that would help preserve the open space within that corridor. And essentially what that restoration or conservation clause could maybe even look like could be something that the commission could assist with as far as drafting that clause. So I'll just pause there for a second before I move on and see if there's any thoughts or comments.
Robert, this is Commissioner Wilson. I noticed that when I looked at the spreadsheet that it said it was locked like in January of 21. So are we looking at the latest spreadsheet, or has there been any updates that we need to be aware of as we're looking at this?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. It's possible I sent you like an older document. I need to double check quick. Or maybe real estate dated a document that they previously worked on.
Yeah, I just didn't know whether this was like the latest and greatest, or not.
There's been no updates to this since the presentation that Bryce provided us.
Okay. Okay, so that spreadsheet was when what we were looking at is the one that when he did the presentation.
Yeah, and I do see a date on the copy that I have as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I think some of them are listed as picture canyon, but they're actually observatory. So
I thought that as well.
I think it's just,
yeah, perhaps. So, I think the first place to start, and this is a tough topic because I don't have a ton of knowledge on easements myself, but I think the thing to reflect on, one is, are there that are impacting open space in a negative way that maybe we could revise or consider revising to help prevent maybe weed spreading and that sort of thing? And if there are, where are those areas that come to mind? So I think identifying if there are places like that, and if there are, maybe what easements are associated with that. And then I think it's worth having a conversation here tonight of whether or not the commission wants to like review some of those and provide a recommendation, or whether they feel like that's unnecessary.
well, I guess, I don't know, Mike, how do you want to do this? I was just going to ask a question.
I'm sorry?
I was just going to ask if that's okay.
Yeah, you just cut out there for a second.
Oh, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on some of them, it looks like the agency or the grantee is responsible for treatment of all noxious weeds. And so I'm kind of curious, like how that's observed or maintained, or like is someone going and measuring that to see if they're actually doing it, or if there's, because that would be, I think, one of the easiest kind of things to check on, is just make sure that they're doing what they said they're going to do. Because there's several of them that I see do have their grantees responsible for treatment of all regulated, restricted, noxious weeds.
Thanks for that, Commissioner Presser. So I do not know if there's a reporting process for these easements, so I can ask Bryce about that.
At one level, you could just send a friendly FYI, just a reminder, you have these easements crossing open space. It'd be great to help, it'd be great if you could help us keep the weeds down. I don't know, it's a friendly neighbor kind of thing.
A list of Arizona noxious weeds too, and the weeds we're worried about may not be on the list.
Yeah, the one
I think they are.
Arizona Department of
Yeah,
Agriculture. Is the city's list different than the Arizona Department of Agriculture?
Not sure.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out.
That's a great suggestion, though. So I think that is a good place to start. So we can certainly look at the existing easements that do have some type of language that talks about maintaining weeds and that sort of thing, and just reach out.
Any other comments? So, well, I do have one. When we is the intent to link all of these to the GIS, all of the property, all the easements that are on this spreadsheet to GIS at some point?
I think ideally that would be great. I don't know if real estate has the capacity for helping us with that. They have a lot of other projects, probably competing with something like this, and probably take priority. Simple.
Right. Well, I mean, not as something that needs to be done necessarily right away, but I think that would be a very good goal to strive for at some point in the future, to be able to go to the GIS really easy, from the spreadsheet, or just a link, and see what we're looking at for that particular piece of property.
Yes, I agree. And I think that if I remember correctly from what the direction that Bryce had given the commission, it was to look at the easements that were the most important to include in that GIS database,
Right.
and
Right.
work on those initially, and then, potentially if they had time, they could do other.
Right. Well, that makes sense. And then, Commissioner Bessler, I remember you talking about above ground and below ground easements.
Yeah. Guidelines that are granted. So that's what I was going to ask. So there's some that are granted, but the agency is unknown, or the grantee is unknown. Like if an easement is not used or falls into, the owner lets it go or something, can the city condemn that easement and retake it, or is that easement there forever?
I think that, if I remember correctly, again from Bryce's points, if it's not used for a certain amount of time, yeah, it does expire.
Because that would be good if there are some that are expired that don't have owners that we could bring back into open space. That would be great.
And I think by expired, I mean like they no longer need the easement for that initial purpose.
Yeah, or it's expired.
Yeah.
All right. So, Robert, what would you like to see from the commission then going forward?
Well, I captured the two questions as far
Right.
as looking at the easements and seeing which ones do already have some kind of language in them for upkeep, and reaching out to those easement holders, or maybe just looking at the easement first to see if there's need to reach out to the easement holder. and then checking to see if any easements are expired, and if so, which ones those might be. I did kind of tentatively go through this spreadsheet that Bryce provided us with to just kind of reflect on what easements maybe do have the biggest impact to our different properties. And so if you could all think kind of about what easements might be impacting open space properties, I think this could be a helpful exercise as well. And just like in our heads, like identifying what easements might actually get attention and what easements like more or less seem to be okay. And so I was thinking about, the Schultz Pass, since this is first in the list. And nothing really stands out to me. I know that there's quite a bit of water services infrastructure on that property, which is underground. And so they haven't had to do any repairs for quite some time that I know of. And so currently I would say that that's somewhat minimal. The next part of the list is for Picture Canyon, and the easements that come to mind here would be the APS transmission lines. El Paso Gas, it's listed as, or Kinder Morgan, which does have an easement and an access road through the preserve. Then there is a water line individual by the name of Pierce that goes through the preserve as well. And then I did see actually in this list something that said Voyager Flagstaff 54, and I think that is one of the Observatory Mesa easements, and it's maybe not supposed to be under Picture Canyon. I was curious about that one because in some of the notes it says that there's an order for cancellation. But that is a very large easement. It covers a lot of acreage. And so those were kind of the top four that kind of attracted my attention for Picture Canyon. And then for Observatory Mesa, there was an easement called Transwestern Pipeline Company. On line 60 here, you can see that. And that is, so I kind of looked at the larger acreage easements for Observatory Mesa, and that one was 5.3 or 5.1. And then on line 61, there's a right of way for the purpose of constructing and operating and maintaining a detention basin and berm. That's line 61, and that is an easement of 27 acres. And typically when there's detention basins and berms in disturbed soil, that is an area you get a lot of invasive weeds. So I've not been out to look at that particular easement, but that could be one that we consider. If I scroll down here to line 65. Line 65, I was unsure of what this easement was for, but it has the language about operation and maintenance highway on and over and across these state lands. So I think having some kind of a knowledge about what that particular easement might be in reference to would be important, since it's a easement of 21 acres. And see if we scroll down to line 66 here, the next line below it. This is another location, construction, and maintenance right of way for the purpose of constructing, operating, and maintaining a public roadway. That's a smaller acreage. As you can see, it's 3.5 acres. And then one that I didn't see in the list, but I believe that there is an easement is for the Arizona Snowball Resort, the reclaimed pipeline, which runs through Observatory Mesa. And underground 12-inch pipe. I didn't see that on this list, but that might be something else that we think about. And then and I saw something for, I was wondering if the Voyager Flagstaff 54 was actually supposed to be for Observatory Mesa, not for Picture Canyon. So I can ask that clarifying question as well. And, you know, then I looked through the McMillan Mesa, which is our last regional preserve, and there's not a lot of information in this particular chart, I think just because they hadn't gotten that far. And so I was really unsure of what easements could potentially have the largest impact, but I know that we had talked about the utility easement itself, the veterans one before, so that is likely on the list. And then there are easements for Union Gas, a general utility easement, like I just mentioned, electrical lines, and there are City of Flagstaff utility easements for like water services. So I guess in summary, those were some of the easements that stood out in my mind as far as like they could potentially have a larger impact on open space property than some of the other easements. And that if we were going to start somewhere, we would maybe start by looking at those.
All right. Anyone have any additional comments, questions? So would you like, I'm just trying to think of going forward here. Our new commissioner, I'm sure, have you had a chance to look at these easements at all? Or is this something that we might review in a little more detail and give you our individual thoughts at the next meeting?
I'm happy to take, Commissioner Wilson, I'm happy to take feedback on however the commission wants to provide it. Okay. Just to kind of rethink about the questions that I maybe had for the commission would be, and I think I've kind of captured a little bit of that, but like what additional information the commission needs maybe.
Right.
Whether or not the commission still feels like they'd like to try to make a recommendation for a specific easement, and whether or not you need additional information for that particular specific easement. Yeah, I think that honestly, I think that's all that comes to my mind. I'm sorry, this particular topic is a little bit like challenging to tackle, I would say.
Yeah. Well, how about if we individually, or come back at the next meeting with our specific easements that we're concerned about, and then we can discuss those in a little more detail. And like I say, I'm not sure that our new commissioner has had a chance to really look at these easements and be able to, provide feedback tonight necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I do recognize it's a big topic for the commissioners that have been on the commission for.
I'm just wondering if there's some steps that we can take to kind of take things in whole. This is a big list. Mm-hmm. So, like, for example, are there easements that have expired that we can take off the rolls, so to speak? That seems like a pretty easy task for someone to just go through and kind of get those and identify those. And then it seems like additional priorities would be to identify those that the agency responsible for noxious weed removal or ground disturbance or other impacts that are easy to see, and maybe categorize those in a list, and then either contact them or find a way to make sure that they're up to par. And I don't know how that process would work with Flagstaff's real estate department or other city staff, but there's like, for example, an email list of all the easement holders for city lands. So we could just send out like a public notice of, if you have an easement on city lands, don't forget, help us with the noxious weeds. You know, it's just kind of secondary, but something to do.
It's a good thought.
As Mike walks around each easement, walks it, make sure it's up to par.
All right, do you have a direction, Robert, that you can work with, and we can come back with some more information at the next meeting?
I have a few things I can follow up on. Yeah, I can certainly check with Bryce about the reporting process for easement holders to see if there is something for that.
And for me, could you check and see if we're actually looking at the latest, information?
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. And then I think my next step will be to try to review these easements to see which of the easements that I kind of thought and shared with you as far as like having the biggest impact potentially.
Right.
I will look at those to see which easements do already have conservation statements or some such language in the easement.
Based on acreage size or something?
Yeah, based on acreage size or maybe just personal knowledge of seeing the easement before. And then I can try to bring that information back to the commission at a later meeting and kind of have an abbreviated list about like, these are the easements that have conservation statements in it. Here's the potential current condition of that easement. And the commission maybe could help me narrow that list down as far as like, if there are potential easement maybe that doesn't have conservation easement or conservation language that we may want to try to revise with the grantee of easement. So,
All right.
does that sound like the type of support that the commission might need for this?
That sounds good to me. It'd be definitely a lot easier to look at a priority list as opposed to all 90 some, so start to go cross-eyed reading all the language. All right. Nothing else? That sounds good going forward.
Great. Well, that, just to leave you heads up, that might take some time. So I wouldn't expect this particular agenda item to come up on the agenda until I have a chance to actually get some time into that.
Yeah. And it'll give us all a chance to look at it in more detail.
Great. Well, I appreciate you guys' discussion on this tonight. I know it's kind of a convoluted topic, so thanks for very much.
All right. So concluding that item, looks like we're down to number 7, reports and updates. We're still without a council representative. Is that correct?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was the introduction that our clerk made.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I forgot to give you a heads up about that, so I apologize.
All right. Do we have a a report?
We do, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You were asking our council member, Kara House. And I did not give Kara a heads up about that either, as far as like that she could provide a council update if she wants to. Yeah, I apologize for putting you in the spot.
And me too.
So I do not have a report for you this evening. I will mark that down, and I'd love to maybe have a chance to sit down with the chair and vice chair to talk about, what those have looked like in the past or what would be most useful for you guys. So I can have something prepared for next time.
Okay, appreciate
Thank you. And I'd be happy to set something up with the chair and vice chair, and we can have a short discussion about that.
That sounds good to me. All right, let's move on to item B, which is the McMillan Mesa Community Celebration.
Yeah, I was wondering actually if you wanted to give a brief update about how that went.
Well, I don't want to exaggerate, but it was an incredible community event. Inspired thousands possibly across the city. Sylvia and Robert did a great job with the logistics. It was a successful day, I would say. We had folks, including, I think Matt is still on, he was there. And we really celebrated with a ribbon cutting, which the mayor and his family were there with Navajo Medicine Man providing a ceremony to make sure that the community, and the land were in harmony with each other, which I thought was great. And we had some great bands. Food truck was there. There was a dancing dragon. There's a lot I can report on. Really, it was just a good confirmation that the city residents love Flagstaff's open spaces, and really happy about McMillan Mesa and how Proposition 413 really solidified Flagstaff's commitment to open space. So Nat, I'd be happy to see if Nat is available. I know, just in terms of Flagstaff's history, we wanted to mark Proposition 413 as, kind of another chapter in Flagstaff's history of conservation of open space. And I thought that was really appropriate.
Thanks, Commissioner.
So I don't know if anyone else has comments on it, but I do want to thank Sylvia and Robert for their hard work, and Friends of Flagstaff's Future who helped organize it, and all the folks who helped with the event.
And your hard work as well, Commissioner Bessler.
Yes, well, I didn't win the run in the morning. There was a Northern Arizona Trail Runners Association did a run that morning. There were about 40 runners on McMillan Mesa, so that was really nice. And then there was a guided hike. How many folks went on that?
15 or so. Yeah.
It's fun.
I think it was very successful. All right. Let's see, where are we at here? The open space management report. That's next. Robert? Sylvia?
Sylvia Struce.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Struce, and I'm the VISTA with the Open Space Program. And so far in May, you saw Robert's April report was included with the materials, but May, we've already had over 150 volunteers. So we had several groups that came down from Washington State. One of them cleaned up McMillan Mesa up the hill from Safeway. You may have noticed there's no more trash bags blowing around up there. And another group came to pull invasive weeds and do some trail work at Picture Canyon. We've been partnering with the Arizona Trail Association They have been working, doing the Seeds of Stewardship program with kids at Kinsey Elementary and at Flagstaff Junior Academy. And their last class was to come to Picture Canyon and do some service work and McMillan Mesa. So pulling huge piles of Scotch thistle that we found behind Kinder Morgan. And the Russian olives and Siberian elms that were cut down last year up on McMillan Mesa, the branches were still behind NASET, so they hauled off several truckloads of branches there. We had a college group that came last week to cut down Siberian elm trees and bushes on McMillan Mesa along Forest Ave down by Turquoise. So you may have noticed you can actually see the road there. And some folks from Parks came with herbicide and chainsaws to help us out too. So we appreciated that very much. We've had 2 new open space stewards in the last month or so, and I talked to another person today who sounds like she's going to sign up as well. With regard to education, Willow Bend has continued and has done a lot of 3rd grade field trips out in Picture Canyon, given that it's coming towards the end of the year. Yesterday, there was an adult guided hike of Picture Canyon. I guess there were a lot of people that went to that. I've been doing at Killip Elementary the Evergreens After School program, where we've been teaching kindergarten through 5th graders about trees and weather and seasons and wildfire, plants, composting, pollinators, and how to tell time. Kids don't learn how to tell time on an analog clock anymore, but it's hard to talk about the seasons if the kids don't know their months, and if they don't know their, if they don't know their weeks and days, then they don't know how to do the months either. So we spent a lot of time doing kind of that basic stuff. But it's been challenging because the kids are kind of off the wall by 4:30 in the afternoon, but it's also been gratifying as well. And then on this past Saturday was Kids to Parks Day, and I worked with Parks and Recreation folks to do a virtual scavenger hunt, which is good through the end of the month, and there's prizes. So if you have kids, go to the Parks and Recreation Facebook page and check out the virtual scavenger hunt. And we did a guided hike of McMillan Mesa for kids as well. We also have been working with a group to remove old barbed wire. Some last week from up at Observatory Mesa near Matson Tank, there were like piles of barbed wire stacked up. So that's all cleared away. And then this coming Sunday, we're working with the federal probationers and parolees to remove more barbed wire out at Picture Canyon. So it's the rusty stuff that's on the ground. And the federal probationers and parolees just love going out with us because it gets them out in the forest and they get to get away from their place for more than 2 hours. And a lot of them taught me how to deal with the barbed wire because they've worked on ranches and stuff. So, Wednesday weed pulls have begun again. So if you want to come to one of those, they're every other Wednesday, 7 to 10 a.m. at Picture Canyon. The next one is a week from this Wednesday on June 1st. Trails Day is coming up on Saturday, June 4th. There's a lot going on that day. But we're partnering with the Flagstaff Biking Association and the Flagstaff Trails Initiative, National Forest, and lots of other partners to build the new trail at Dry Lake Hills, and they're meeting at the Schultz Creek Trail Pit. And that's from 8:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday, June 4th. So those are.
Thanks, Sylvia. And I just want to add the invasive elm removal along Forest Avenue, that Parks came out and really helped out a lot. We had asked them to come out and treat the stumps since they need to be treated within like 15 minutes of cutting. And they went way above and beyond and really helped us out by not only treating but cutting and hauling. And I think Ian Anderson, Gustin Cole, and Sean Mulaney were all there. And it was very helpful to have them, so that was great. One other update, we are moving into stage 2 fire restrictions. And so that'll be, I believe, by the end of the week. So, of course, charcoal barbecue grills are prohibited throughout the city of Flagstaff, including private residents and private campgrounds. The use of fire pits and open flame devices without an on-off switch are also prohibited, including those that have a spark arrestor screen throughout the city of Flagstaff. So I just wanted you to be aware.
And can I ask a quick question from the monthly report? This monthly report, the Picture Canyon Reclaimed Water Release Agreement. It's been at 40% waiting for legal review for like, I don't know, a year or more. I was just curious, when does that agreement expire? And is there any hope of getting it through legal?
Hey, yeah, thanks for that question. So it doesn't expire until the year 2030. We did start working on this in advance, partially because there is such demand for reclaimed water in Flagstaff for other uses. We wanted to make sure that we secured some kind of agreement with water services for the benefit of wildlife and the public out of Picture Canyon. Yeah, it has been on hold. It's funny that you asked me this because I do actually have a meeting set up when I return next week. So hope to move that forward sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
but
I was just wondering if there was a specific thing that was holding it up or just bandwidth, of doing the work.
Yeah, they're super busy, and I recognize that. And because the agreement doesn't expire in 2030, it's probably the easiest thing to put off right now. So that's probably so
yeah, I didn't realize that it was out that that far. I thought it was a couple of years.
It is a ways out still.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
Anybody else on this item before we move on to the informational items to and from the commission and staff? Is there anybody that has anything they want to share?
I'm just kind of curious if there's any update. Talking about Schultz Creek, is there any movement with the Forest Service on kind of arranging a new parking area there?
The Mount Elvin Dry Lake Hills Forest Trail Plan did actually identify another location for a trailhead in the event that the city cannot partner. That would be further down the Mount Elvin Boulevard. That said, we actually just had a regional trail strategies meeting, which is a collaborative meeting with different land management entities throughout Flagstaff. And that was a very brief topic of discussion since the Mount Elvin Dry Lake Hills plan is going into effect. And, I think some things have changed since that discussion occurred with City Council. And at that meeting, those things were somewhat discussed. And so I think there is some interest in knowing where that topic is with the city's open space program. So we do hope to have some type of discussion.
Great, thanks.
And then I do have a couple of to and from items as well.
Okay.
The last update that the Open Spaces Commission provided to City Council was March of 2021. And so I just wanted to throw it out there to see if the commission wanted to consider providing another update to the city council at some point in the future. And if so, we could try to put that on a future agenda item to kind of have a discussion as far as like what the commission would like to update the council on, and putting together like a draft presentation. So that's just something to kind of think about. And then kind of along those same lines with kind of keeping folks in tune with what we're working on, the boards and commission newsletter. We would love like ideas for content for that for the next quarterly newsletter from commissioners. To kind of think about and you know, to think about potentially for a future agenda item as well.
All right. Any other to and from? And move on to number 9, which is the potential future agenda items. And you know, from your comments on the to and from, I think it would be a good idea to put those items on a future agenda. So make it official.
Okay, I can do that.
Anybody else have anything that they'd like to see on a future agenda? And then if not, we'll go through the list that's on here that is already potentially on a future agenda. Again, not seeing any questions or any comments. You want to talk about what you've got on here, Robert?
Sure. Yeah, you know, honestly, I don't have anything new from the last meeting. We just have kind of the commission's regular priorities on here. The easement, the open space easements, which we kind of touched base on this evening and probably won't bring it back to you for a while. We did that discussion with Sarah Dechter and her team about the regional plan updates and the opportunities for the commission to provide input on that process. And so I thought that could be a logical future agenda item when we're ready to do that. And then really the only thing that is relatively new is the last one, the Don Beaver Trail alignment proposal. We are working with Leglon Trails to put a proposal together for realignment of that currently. And that is something that the commission will ask the commission to review when we have material for that. Yeah, and then I'm happy to add other items if the commissioners believe that we need any other things to talk about.
Anybody want to add anything else? Not hearing anything. I guess I'll just say that the next meeting is June 27th. Same location. Hopefully I'll make it into the Aquaplex next month.
Yeah, sounds good. We can continue to try this hybrid option and see how that works for the commission.
Yeah, it's amazing here, Mike.
All right, so that takes care of all that. I guess we're down to item 10.
We have one more item here.
Okay, I'm sorry. What did I miss?
Chair Wilson, I'm sorry, it's Rebecca. I just wanted to
Oh.
suggest that, you know, maybe at the next meeting you can discuss again how many of you would like to do the in-person versus online only. If it's only a couple of you, maybe we consider going back. Because it is quite a bit, as you can see, we have 4 staff here. We have quite a bit of equipment that we have to set up. So if most of the commission is like able to be in person, then we might humbly request that you consider just doing virtual meetings until more commissioners are ready to be in person.
Thanks, Rebecca. You know, I just thought of one positive point I forgot to share too. And the commission is on the city council's agenda for appointments next month in June 7th. So that's exciting.
Are there applications for?
Yes, I think we have I can't recall how many applications we have, but we have enough. We have enough.
All right. All right. Well, hopefully I will be there in person next month, and I guess we can see if, you know, the comfort level of meeting in person. And otherwise, I guess we're down to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
This is Andy, a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. All those in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
All right, everyone, have a good evening.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. See you next time.